You want my life? And you ask me why I'm emailing at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning? I work while you sleep so I can live like you dream.
Welcome back to another episode of Wheels and Wealth, where we interview some of the most successful entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs that are car enthusiasts. I'm your host, Khalil Marcano, and we have a first at Wheels and Wealth. I vowed to never do this, but this guest resume is so deep that I had to write on index cards for this man's introduction. So today with us, we have BK Fulton, who is the founding chairman and CEO of Solidify Productions, a feature film and media investment company designed to promote a more inclusive narrative in media. Solidify has produced 20 feature films starring names such as Bruce Willis, Frank Grillo, Taye Diggs, John Cusack, and Ron Perlman, as well as producing an upcoming feature, The Kill Room, starring Samuel L. Jackson and Uma Thurman. Solidify, has also made a significant impact on Broadway, including the critically acclaimed award-winning production Thoughts of a Colored Man, as well as August Wilson's Pulitzer Prize-winning play The Piano Lesson, starring Samuel L. Jackson and John David Washington, which is currently nominated for 2 Tony Awards.
That's right.
And also coming soon, the national tour of The Wiz. This is why I needed the cards. You see, I'm still going, right? BK has also authored 18 books in his production company. He's a Smithsonian Laureate Medal recipient, in addition to having ownership interests in MoviePass 2.0. In addition to that, he is also the chairman of 6 other companies. And if that's not enough, prior to becoming a full-time entrepreneur and author, BK enjoyed a very successful career as a corporate executive, having worked for companies such as the U.S. Department of Commerce, AOL, Time Warner, the National Urban League, and having retired as the president of Verizon, West Virginia, and the Mid-Atlantic region. BK, clearly you've done nothing with your life. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us today. How are you?
I am doing fantastic and continuously improving.
I have no idea why you're here. We interview successful people. And, after reading that, I mean, clearly you've not really done much.
No, just kick the fruit rocks down the road.
So, man, we're glad to have you on board today. You bought a beautiful specimen of the 2020 Chevrolet Corvette. And we've got a lot to cover there. But before we jump in on that, we'd love to know your story, how you got to where you are, and also just sharing some tips and some advice for people who may want to follow in your footsteps.
Okay,
so,
let's do it.
Welcome to Wheels and Wealth, and let's kick it off. So where do we start? Where does BK's story begin?
Wow. Well, you give me a little bit more of this good drink, and I might tell you everything. No, I'm from Hampton, Virginia.
Okay.
My parents are school teachers, so instead of a preacher's kid, I'm a teacher's kid, so a TK, BK to TK. And they instilled in me a love for reading, math, science. I was always athletic, and so athletics played a part in my early days in particular. I was good in school, but also good in sports. And so the cool kids wouldn't mess with me because I could beat them in basketball.
Gotcha.
I could beat them in the dojo in martial arts. And so they just would say, BK's different. And I took that natural curiosity to engineering school at Virginia Tech in Blacksburg, Virginia, and a crazy thing happened. That environment was so different for me that I wasn't doing well. It might surprise you to plan my escape from Virginia Tech. And it was in that library, and I think it was divine, and I ended up in the E185 section. And in any Dewey Decimal System, the E185 section is the section on black people. And I started reading about Lewis Latimer, who invented the part of the lights that glow. So wrote the very first book in the world on incandescence, the project to light New York, Philadelphia, London, Montreal. Lewis Latimer, the brother from my home state. And I got inspired. And I went from the probations list to the dean's list to the board of directors at Virginia Tech, where they're flying me in a jet to govern the school. And I was like, oh, so this is what it means when you do well in school and you learn your lesson and you apply yourself. And so then I got a scholarship and great music and great cinematography. I could do for others what was done for me and put a life on rocket boosters, but not teach as many as you can is a growth strategy. Each one teach the multitudes is an exponential growth strategy. And film and media punch above their weight. So I said, if I could tell these powerful stories and tell our kids who they are before the world tells them who they are not, then I can change the world.
I'm gonna tell you something. This has changed my mind. This is the second time that this has technically happened, okay? But the C8 Corvette. It really hasn't been in my list of cars that I'm like, you know, cars I want. As I'm still a kid, right? So I'm like, oh, cars that I want. And then you pulled up with this. And this color, the way it fits the car, honestly, I didn't even know this thing had an exposed engine, and you're gonna show that to us in a second, but this is a very just beautiful example of this car. And I'm not saying that you changed my mind about all of the C8 Corvettes, but I want this one. This is the one that I want.
This will be a great one to have. This is an original 2020. It's the C8 mid-engine generation, of course, with the exposed engine. Removable mid-roofs. If I wanted to be kind of a convertible, I can have it like that.
We need you to take that off.
So that pops off.
Man, I didn't know that. Okay.
It's a naturally aspirated V8, Z51 package.
Yeah.
0 to 60 in less than 3 seconds, like, I don't know, somewhere between 2.6, 2.8. I mean, that's, my electric car it accelerates in that range, but for an internal combustion engine car to do that is car magic.
So you have such an amazing background. Typically on our show, we get entrepreneurs or intrapreneurs, and I love that term, intrapreneurs. It's relatively new, and it basically, I'm sure you know this, but it stands for people who they don't have their own companies, but they are pushing someone else's organization forward, and they're incredibly good at what they do. Mm-hmm. They're masters at their craft, and mm-hmm. because of that, they are very successful, mm-hmm. both monetarily and otherwise. Mm-hmm. You fit into both equations in mm-hmm. a very, very big way. Mm-hmm. So I want to go back to that library. Okay. How does one go to the library to plan an escape from college? You know, I thought you just don't go to class and you leave. So
that's probably the traditional route.
Yeah.
But as you kind of laid out, I'm not quite the traditional person. And so for me, books were always my friends. And I figured I could figure it out in the library.
Okay.
So when I went in, I wasn't expecting to find stories of my ancestors who had achieved in spite of the obstacles.
Were you looking for something that was going to lead you down a path of, okay, this is what successful people do who leave college, or you just didn't know and that was just your safe place?
I had no idea. It was a quiet place away from my roommates who would have kept giving me this.
Okay.
And it allowed me really to take stock of who I was, what I wanted to be. I was assuming that I'd go in there and find some career stuff on going into the military or whatever. In fact, I joined the National Guard for a little while.
Wow.
And I respect the people that served. I was a mortar gunner. And I didn't see a lot of future in that for me. Ended up writing a 60-year plan while I was at Virginia Tech. So after that experience, I wrote this plan and I based it on the life of successful people. So I went back to the library and wrote and looked up kind of this Dick Parsons, Mary Ann Spraggins, Ron Brown, Vernon Jordan, and I isolated the common denominators of their success. All of them had law degrees, so that's why I went to law school.
Okay.
All of them worked in the Northeast at some point, so that's why I went to New York. And before you know it, as you get more mature or more interest, then you add your own scaffolding. So when I talk to young people today, I tell them, look, the blueprint is to model a life that you respect and then add your scaffolding as you get more mature, more interest, more understanding. But as you're growing, because we all have to grow, we don't start here, we start crawling, walking, running. And so they're steps. And life is full of these steps. In fact, what I tell people often when I have a large audience is that in life there are mirrors and windows. And so mirrors are particularly important when you're young. Do you see yourself reflected in the images that you consume in magazines or books, on TV, on film? And if you see this healthy set of people that you relate to that look like you begin to understand or appreciate how you fit in the world, how you exist in the world, what you can do in the world. And then windows are you looking out through somebody else's experience and lens. And as human beings, you realize you can do those things too, especially if your mirrors are healthy. But a person who doesn't have healthy instances of figuring out who they are, when they get in these big places, president of this or these big jobs, an imposter syndrome can set in because they're not used to seeing themselves in those places. And so what I try to do with my books, my cinema, is to make sure that young men and women of all stripes see themselves in righteous roles, in winning roles, as strong protagonists, as leaders. And the science of this is that when human beings can identify with the characters in a book or in film or TV, they are 3 to 10 times more likely to believe that they can do it too. That's the power of examples. And I wanted to be one of those positive examples for my community, for my world. And not just kids that look like me, but for everybody.
Everyone.
Because at some point, we have to embrace our humanity. And we are all God's creations and part of the human family. And so anybody's story or anything a human being has done, if I'm willing to do the work, I can do it too.
So in that same vein, I really want to, again, you've got a magnificent story and just the timeline, understanding what that looks like for someone who may want to follow in your footsteps. You now know what you're going to do. You've got your 60-year plan.
Right,
okay?
right.
You go get a master's immediately once the bachelor's is done?
I do.
Okay. And the JD comes immediately?
It does.
Okay, so...
While I'm working, though. So
while you're working. So what
are
you doing at this time? What are you working? Where are you working, excuse me?
For master's or JD?
Both.
Okay, so when I was getting my master's, I was living in Harlem.
Okay.
And I was working at a program in the Bronx teaching kids how to use computers. And it was called the Career Advancement Program. It was the #1 program in the poorest congressional district in the country. And like, how are you having the #1 program? There's these new things called computers coming out. They hadn't quite proliferated the business scene like they are now. And we would go to the employers and find out what they needed and teach the students to the task. And so it became the #1 program in that part of the country. And then when I was in law school, I was working at the National Urban League. So I was going to law school at night and working full-time in a very big and important job. And so it took me 4 years to finish the law degree at night. I was the founding director of the Technology Programs and Policy Department. And before I took that, I was the assistant director for the African American Adolescent Male Development Center. So we were writing books and doing conferences on helping young men to be the best version of themselves.
So you transitioned from working at the center in Harlem to assistant directing and then ultimately becoming the director of the National Urban League.
Basically, yeah. The National Urban League was located, the national office was based in Sutton Place, so it wasn't quite in Harlem. I lived in Harlem.
Right.
In fact...
and the reason, just so you know, that I'm focusing on this is because you have a significant resume in corporate leadership. Yeah. And
let me tell you this part. So when I was in graduate school, I wrote my master's thesis, and it's called Ghetto No More. And it was the community redevelopment plan for Central Harlem. And I worked with Abyssinian Development Corporation. Harlem Urban Development Corporation picked it up, and it became the plan for Harlem.
Wow.
So my master's thesis, if you, the grocery store, the stuff at Shriver's Row, all the rebuild, that was my plan. So the very first house I owned in life was because of my master's thesis.
What color is this?
This is called Zeus Bronze.
Amazing.
And then I got the pewter
Now, were they always available in this color, or is this a special
This was one of the
special
initial
order?
colors, but now they don't make it anymore.
Produce this, yeah.
So this is a discontinued, so I love it.
Okay.
So only an original 2020 will have this color.
Wow. Got it. And the wheels?
The wheels, the pewter rims are a special order, and the large brake calipers come with the Z51 package stock.
So now I gotta tell, I'm serious, man. I've never really checked for this car, but now I'm here and I'm looking at this. This front end is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful car. Now, you spent most of your career in tech, is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay, so
very much so.
You transitioned from director of the National Urban League, and then you go to where?
Wow. I left the league, as I said, went to law school, and then ended up at America Online. They recruited me.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a very interesting conversation I had with them. I had basically accepted a job at another company.
Okay.
And I called the people at AOL. There's one guy, David Eisner. I said, hey, Dave, you know, I know we've been talking, but these other people offered me a job, and I'm going to take it on Friday. This was a Wednesday. He's like, how long do I have? I was like, well, I got to call the guy on Friday. It's Wednesday. He was like, you have a fax machine. I was
Out
like,
of curiosity, what kind of numbers are we talking in terms of salary at that stage of leadership at this point?
7-figure signing bonus, big salary. Okay, so it's good.
Time out. Time out. All right. I want to make sure. we didn't. This is important, okay? Because we've got.
Go ahead.
You know, we're gonna have viewers that say, "Hey, listen, you know, I don't want to start my own company. I want to climb the corporate ladder, and I want to do so in a very smart, efficient way. I know I've got skills. I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to do whatever's necessary.
Yeah.
You know, within reason, as long as it's legal, moral, and ethical to get ahead. We got to back up some. I'm sorry, BK.
It's okay.
All right, so we don't just jump to a 7-figure salary. What? We don't hear that often in the working space. We hear that all the time from our entrepreneurs that we have on set. So,
first professional job.
Okay.
When I finished graduate school.
And that was a 6-figure deal from day one?
No, it was not 6 figures, but approaching 6.
Okay.
What's interesting was it was a woman who became a mentor, and she said, you're working 5 jobs for these people, and they need to pay you a little more.
Okay.
And so she helped me to do this memo that laid out all the jobs that I was doing. I was just happy to be working and helping my people.
Gotcha.
And so, but she was right. I was working a lot.
Yeah.
And so they gave me these really nice increases for the rest of my time. And I stayed there about 10 years.
Okay. So you went from nearly 6 figures, strong 5-figure salary, and you ended.
Yeah, ended up.
Okay.
And so the multi-million signing bonus, the 7-figure signing bonus, was for coming and heading up a program at America Online.
Awesome.
And it was bringing me back home. And so I did that, and I loved it.
Yeah.
They were bringing technology to communities. We were working with the Peace Corps, working with big companies, working with the White House. I mean, it was important. I mean, I have a law degree, but I've never really practiced law. I've used my legal acumen in the business space, and so it's been a tremendous asset. But at the end of the day, my DNA, having parents that are teachers, family that are preachers, family that are to do stuff just a plus. And, you know, my parents were working class and frugal. I mean, if you said, where did it all start? Like my very first job ever was working with my dad cutting grass. He had this little landscaping business. So I say he was a teacher, but we went out and we did landscaping. And when I was 10 years old, one of his best customers, John Lawson, you know, big developer in town, actually the largest construction company in Virginia. I was like, I want him to be my customer, and I want to be an entrepreneur. Now, I can't drive, so I need you to drive me to the job. I don't have any lawnmowers, so I need to borrow your lawnmowers and your gas.
You had a great
I'm gonna
dad.
take your best customer. And they went along with it, and it was wonderful. And so to this day,
Yeah,
John supports pretty much anything that I do.
that is
And so
incredible.
a number of my businesses, he's always been there. He's one of the first calls. And I think I watched people like him and the life he got to live because he put in the work. I watched my parents put in the work. And so we didn't live in the Taj Mahal, but we weren't hungry. And we had fun, and we went places sometimes. And I knew I was going to go to college. I knew I was probably going to get a graduate school. I didn't know law until I created that 60-year plan.
Yeah.
And all my models had law, so that's when I knew that. But for me, that work ethic and the appreciation of performance and reward, I think got baked in early. So by the time the bigger jobs came, the AOL and the Time Warner and stuff like that, I was ready. And further, I wasn't mystified by those kind of numbers. What I found was that if you work with people that do pretty well,
You mean income, salary,
all of
bonus
that,
numbers.
exactly.
Got it. Okay.
And if you work with people that do pretty well, they don't mind if you do well too. And so it becomes a new normal. But it's an adjustment, especially if that's not part of your family lineage. And it definitely wasn't part of mine. We're mostly preachers and teachers, working class people, military people.
Awesome. So incredibly successful career, at least I think by most people's standards in corporate leadership.
I've had sports cars where you don't want to drive them too far.
Yeah.
This one, I mean, we drove the 4-hour trip here, no road wear, no tiredness. We love getting in this car as a tour, and then it has a dial. You can just turn it to touring mode, and the balance loosens up a little bit. The seat and shocks respond so that you're like riding almost in your living room, kind of a Cadillac kind of feel. And of course, GM, so it makes sense.
Yeah.
And then if I really want things to tighten, I'll switch it to sport mode. And if I'm on a track, switch it to track mode. And then it really gets on rails.
Comes out.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sitting here checking out the exposed engine, reminiscent of Lamborghini. You've got carbon fiber in there. The engine itself just looks absolutely incredible. This is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful example of this vehicle. I want to go in the interior, the rear. I almost feel bad about the way I felt about the car prior to you coming on set with this. So, share 3 key pieces of advice for anyone who would be interested in climbing the corporate ladder, whether it's in tech, finance, or anywhere, but truly getting into a position where they can push a company forward, right? They can have a similar, and they can enjoy a similar income structure and maybe be signing a multi-million-dollar bonus in corporate leadership as soon as possible. What does that road look like today for someone who wants to follow that path? Three key pieces.
3 key, if I had to crystallize to 3, 1, be prepared. So I didn't just walk into a situation and people offered me something because I was handsome. I hope I'm still handsome. My wife probably thinks I'm handsome. But so getting the training was important. And then building the relationships. The relationships like the Mr. Lawson who hired me and became a mentor and a family friend, like family. The CEOs at the Urban League, Hugh Price and John Jacob, Vernon Jordan, these people were kind to me and would and help me to avoid some of the pitfalls that they or others might have fallen into. And so that was helpful. And then I think try to make yourself indispensable. So for me, technology was a bit of a niche. And so I got very comfortable with it. My training was engineering architecture, management science, intellectual property law, electronic commerce, telecommunication. So I could sit down and talk the talk with the guys and the ladies in the field as well. And I tried to always make myself indispensable. I believe this strongly. God blesses all of us to turn our dreams and ideas into their tangible equivalents. But you have to have the faith, be willing to do the work, and expect the outcomes. Then the magic happens. As long as you do everything you know how to do, that's when your faith tradition, our ancestors, everything good shows up. That's when you find the book you need to find in the library that keeps you going. That's when you read the great story that propels your next level. That's when you meet the kind of people that can help to open doors. And luck is where kind of opportunity meets preparation. So that opportunity opens up, and I'm ready for it. I'm ready for it. And then I seize it. And then when I get the job, the final thing is knock it out of the park. I choose to be great by design. And on days that I may not feel strong enough to do great things, I do small things in a great way. So then you always on the grind. That's what I tell people. If you want my life and you ask me why I'm emailing at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, I work while you sleep so I can live like you dream.
I'm going to tell you why I feel good, because we hung out last night and I was getting prepped for our interview today. And I was up at 3 a.m. texting my partners and nobody responded. I just want you to know
you should have hit me. I was up.
They were asleep. So
it's all good. Rest is important. It's critically important.
Absolutely.
In fact, let me tell you this little thing right quick. So I used to only sleep about 3 or 4 hours a day. Now, that was out of necessity. So I read this book about Martin Luther King called Let the Trumpets Sound. And it's written by Stephen Oat. And it said Martin Luther King would get up early in the morning and get a lot done before 9 o'clock. Everything he did after 9 was extra gravy. And I was like, okay, I can try that. And so I did that for a while because, law school and working full time. And my schedule was crazy. I was up at 4, studied at 7, get ready, go down to catch the train from Harlem to Wall Street, work, go to the law school, go work at the library at the law school, get back home at midnight, and do it again every day for 4 years. And so I got in this habit of not sleeping. Well, it turns out not sleeping is really bad for your body.
Yeah.
And I thought that when I start sleeping more, it would affect my productivity. Actually, my productivity went up when I get more sleep. You want to know why? Because I'm lucid longer. If I get up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and write a song or write a book or start on one or work on one that's already in progress, about lunchtime, a little after lunch, I need a nap.
Yeah.
I'm tired, I'm spent. If I get my full 7 hours sleep, maybe 8 sometimes, 8's a joy. Then I can go from when I start working till 7, 8 o'clock at night and not get tired. And so that extra 3 or 4 hours of lucid mental acuity really becomes part of the secret sauce. It is, am I doing everything to help my body and my mind help me to have the life that I want to have my best life? And so that's part of the reason why I love sharing with people, because I believe if you bring the best version of you, I bring the best version of me, it resolves in love. And that's the secret ingredient. And we can build something better. And if we can get that to be kind of contagious and more people always being excellent, trying to be great, all of a sudden we accelerate the cure for cancer. We accelerate the cure for dementia or Alzheimer's or the things that impact all of us.
Yes.
It ain't a black thing, it's a people thing.
It's a human thing.
It's a human thing. And waking people up to the truth of that, to the reality of that, is part of what I think is my core work. I'm in the belief shifting business. I want that little brown boy or girl to know that they can do anything. I want that little white kid on the wrong side of the tracks from Appalachia to believe they can do anything. And they don't have to take from me for them to get theirs. I want that kid in the barrio, that kid on the reservation, that kid from Chinatown or wherever. I love everybody because a lot of these people help me. I owe a lot of people. And so when I do the work that I do, I hope that the love we put in it comes across. because we do it because we love life, living, the people. I love being able to be here with you right now and talk about one of my joys.
I was going to say, it has to come across because in this small slice of your life that we're getting to take part in this interview, it's definitely coming across in waves. Now, I want to switch gears.
Okay.
How long would you say your career was in corporate America? Because you retired, I mean, for all intents and purposes, early. In my estimation, around the age of 50, correct?
Right at 50. So exactly 49 years, 348 days. Per plan. That was in my plan to do 50. So I was a little ahead of schedule.
All right, note to self, I need a 60-year plan. It's quick. As soon as we're done, I'm getting a 60-year plan put together because this sounds strong. But how many years did your corporate career span?
Right, probably about 20.
20 years,
yeah.
Okay. Gosh, that's incredible. Most people, for all intents and purposes, they would have hung it up at that point. You've done well salary-wise. We've heard that. I'm sure you've got plenty of retirement plans, coming in, giving income, all of that good. So actually, you're not even young enough to take that without getting the penalty at this point.
Right.
But most people, my point is, they would be comfortable. They would be comfortable. You weren't. And you hung your corporate jersey up in the rafters and then embarked on a brand new journey called entrepreneurship in a very full way. And that brings us to the birth of Solidify Productions and Media Company. Please tell us about that. First of all, the name is absolutely incredible, right? And your wife did me the pure favor of making sure that I got the pronunciation.
I appreciate it. That's why I love my wife.
And spot on. So tell us about Solidify. I love the name. Where's the name from? How did that come into fruition?
So I'm a person that likes to do my homework.
Okay.
And when we were thinking about a name for the production company, I wanted to be something that spoke to everyone.
Yeah.
And so everybody has a soul. And so soul had to be a core part of the name. And we wanted to bring people together.
Solidify is a play on solidify, bring people together. The Y typically is expressed as a butterfly.
But colors are all the colors of all the ethnicities.
Wow.
All the things we have to share, the land, the water, the sun. And the one thing we have in common, the red, the blood. And so all that's in that butterfly. The other thing that I wanted to convey was the idea of metamorphosis. And that, the caterpillar, this thing that's crawling around on the ground, slow and not of any particular moment, all of a sudden goes somewhere and works on itself in a chrysalis and emerges in flight. Beautiful, wings, proud, and soars towards the heavens. And so that metaphor worked for me because we've come from a little something and turned it into a big something, a special something. And anyone is capable of it. And so Solidify in itself is this part of the story. And our motto is Bemuse, meaningful, uplifting stories that are entertaining and beautiful. We realize that we had to convey messages that moved people or they wouldn't support the work. And we'd be a one-hit wonder, a two-hit wonder. We didn't want that. We wanted to make 70 films. We wanted to deliver.
You're well on your way.
Well on my way at 20. We wanted to deliver into the media space an experience that awakened something in people that led them on this journey of excellence. And so far, so good.
Wow. So how does one start a production company? Now, I'm asking, right? And I know because we started one to produce Wheels and Wealth, but I had the cheat code. My partners, this is their realm.
Yeah.
They operate here. How does one go from corporate tech leadership, so to speak, to starting a production company that is producing books, which you've authored, right?
Yeah.
Producing films that are starring big ticket names, A-list actors,
Sure,
right?
sure.
That is, producing plays on Broadway that are up for, that are already award-winning but are up for Tony. How does that occur?
Yeah.
Why does that occur? Because you could have literally done anything
Sure.
else.
Sure.
So why this and how this?